Coming up on Carolina Week, defining a generation, how September 11th is shaping the nation's students.
And after the New York plane crash, at least one Carolina student is driving instead of flying home for Thanksgiving, even though home is hundreds of miles away. Carolina Week is next.
From the School of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, this is Carolina Week.
Good evening, I'm Tim Nelson. Thanks for joining us for the November 14th edition of Carolina Week.
And I'm Brigida Mack. We're proud to be bringing you coverage of Carolina news and events.
We begin tonight with a story out of New York City where a plane crash killed hundreds in Queens.
This isn't just affecting New Yorkers, but students and other North Carolinians here at home. As a result of Monday's plane crash and the events of September 11th, some UNC Chapel Hill students are rethinking flying home for the holidays. Carolina Week's Nicole Brusick talks with one student who's taking the long way home for the holidays.
5 plane crashes in 3 months, hundreds killed. The most recent crash in Queens, New York, has some Americans avoiding the skies.
Daddy. Hi.
UNC Chapel Hill sophomore Jennifer McClendon won't be flying this holiday season.
Well, last year over Thanksgiving, I flew home, and that's what I'd wanted to do again this year. But in light of everything that's happened, my parents just didn't really feel comfortable with me doing that.
It's not just her parents who are anxious about flying.
I think it's scary to everybody, and everyone's a little bit apprehensive.
This apprehension is normal, but clinical psychologist Reed Wilson says flying is safer than people think.
Yeah, you're 10 times more at risk on a train even than a plane.
Wilson is a specialist in working with people who are afraid of flying. His advice to help overcome flying fears?
Decide that your anxieties are about you and not the industry, not about the skies.
And if you're truly petrified of planes,
people don't have to fly if they don't want to.
Wilson has written a book, Achieving Comfortable Flight, to help people overcome their fear of flying. In Chapel Hill, Nicole Brusick, Carolina Week.
American Airlines will completely refund tickets purchased before November 12th. Travelers must apply for a refund by November 19th. For more information about American Airlines refund and exchange policies, log on to our website at carolinaweek.org. American pride remains high on the UNC Chapel Hill campus as Veterans Day is celebrated exactly 2 months after the attack on America. Crowds gathered Friday at Carolina to pay respect to military personnel who fought or are fighting to defend freedom. As the American flag passed by, people saluted a national symbol representing a country at war. The band played military songs as members of each branch of service marched to their anthems. Organizers say this celebration symbolizes the best in America. Some people think Veterans Day is celebrated on the second Monday in November, but in 1978, Gerald Ford returned the annual holiday to its original date of November 11th.
Pick up a copy of last week's Newsweek and you'll see the nation's young adults might have a new name, Generation 9/11. But does the name fit? Carolina Week took a look across campus to find out.
People try to put us to down. Talking about my generation.
Many people are doing just that, talking about the generation made up of today's high schoolers and college students. Those at UNC Chapel Hill aren't exactly taking the label lying down.
But I don't see it like calling out a generation from it. It doesn't seem appropriate.
I don't really like the idea of being defined by a terrorist act.
Sure, the next generation gathered together on September 11th, glued to TVs like everyone else. But many students here don't want that defining day in American history to define their generation, including student body president Justin Young.
This is something that I'll learn from and grow from, but other than that, I don't think it defines who my generation is.
After years of peace and prosperity, the changing times are changing things.
Everything's not perfect. It's not just about, music and rock and roll or whatever, There's actual major issues and major problems that need to be dealt with out there.
But that doesn't have everyone ditching previous career plans and rushing into government, military, and other public service jobs.
The shift isn't so much more people going into those careers as it is an appreciation for those careers among the general population is growing.
Few here think Generation 9/11 will stick, And according to Andy Perrin and the sociology department, it probably shouldn't.
Is it the case that you can actually define an entire generation around anything, whether it's a big event or a style? I think that's not the case.
Perrin says it's just too early to start naming this generation and that most labeled until its members are at least in their mid-30s. UNC Chapel Hill journalism professor Chuck Stone joins us now for a little more on this story. Professor Stone, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, Tim.
I know that you spoke to some students in one of your classes about this Generation 9/11 label. What exactly was the student reaction to the label? Do they like it?
No, they didn't. They rejected the label. Both the students in my censorship class, 94 students and 28 students in magazine writing, were almost unanimous. So the vote was like 5 or 6 to 1 that this is not who we are.
What exactly was it that they didn't like about the label?
I don't think you can define a generation by numbers, 9-11. 9/11 is what you call when you need help from the police. So 5 years from now, people will say, what is 9/11? It doesn't mean anything. So I think that they realized that this was not sufficient, it was not adequate, and it did not define who they are.
So they didn't take too warmly to the Generation 9/11 label. What kind of things do they want to be defined for? Did they give you any other ideas?
They know, and that's good. Listen, this is 1991. The generation is just getting started. So that for Newsweek to devote a whole cover story about 9-11 is fatuous. It's meaningless and does not define the generation. But in all fairness, the students did not have a concept or a definition, a self-definition. And they shouldn't right now.
Many have called your generation, the one that came of age during World War II, the greatest generation. And of course, there's no question that that war did define your generation. Do you think September 11 and the war against terrorism will have an impact on today's youth similar to World War II on your generation?
Not to a certain extent. Remember, World War II is a major international war. We were in Europe. We were fighting 2 wars, both in Japan and Europe. That was a big war, World War II. But the significance of September 11, that it was the first attack on American soil that brought the war home to us. I still don't think this is of that magnitude yet.
Switching gears a little bit now, you've had decades of professional journalism experience. I'm wondering how you think the media are covering this war so far, kind of compared to how they covered wars in the past.
They're doing an excellent job. You look at the New York Times, they have a whole section called A Nation Challenged, which I read every day, the Washington Post, the USA Today, Wall Street Journal. They're doing a fine job. It's complete. They devote 4 and 5 stories each day to it, different aspects, human interests and so forth. I'm very proud of the media. I think they're doing an excellent job.
Professor Stone, I guess it's only fair. What grade would you give the media at this point in time with the war coverage?
I'd give them a B+, between a B+ and A-. Not quite A-, but a strong B+.
Okay. All right. Well, Professor Stone, thanks so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
I enjoyed it, Tim.
UNC Chapel Hill Chancellor James Measer is asking for student opinions about the UNC Qatar business proposal. He met with students at a forum hosted by the Campus Y and student government Wednesday afternoon. University administrators and faculty members heard students air their views about the proposal. And continuing our controversial coverage of this issue, Carolina Week's Adura Echumba has more about the little Persian Gulf country with the big wallet.
Located northeast of Saudi Arabia in the Persian Gulf region, Qatar is one of the world's leading producers of natural gas and crude oil. But it's Qatar's ambitious educational program that's catching the university's eye.
The goal is to educate the Qatari people and anybody else in that region, for that matter, anybody in the world.
The initiative by the Qatar Foundation for Education, Science and Community Development is designed to make the capital city, Doha, an educational center for the Middle East. The Keenan Flagler Business School here at UNC Chapel Hill is one of the top 5 university programs involved in Education City, Qatar's multi-million-dollar project. Schools already present in Qatar include Cornell University Medical School, Virginia Commonwealth School of Arts, Canada's College of the North Atlantic heads the Information and Technology program, while a school-to-head engineering program is yet to be announced. 2 years ago, the University of Virginia declined an offer to head the business program, but suggested Carolina. Professor Robert Shelton says UNC can gain from this.
The culture itself offers tremendous opportunities for study. Islamic culture studies, for example.
Professor Ellen Pierce says the project focuses on women.
The first several years of this program, we're going to be educating a lot of women from Qatar. Not exclusively, but certainly that's a concern.
Earlier this week, Chancellor Mises sent a survey to faculty members. Whether there will be any Qatar Hills in the future depends on the responses he gets. In Chapel Hill, Amaduria Chumba, Carolina Week.
Qatar has a population of about 700,000 people, only 25% of whom are native Qataris. 23% are from other Arab countries, 36% Indian or Pakistani, while the remaining 16% include mostly Brits and Americans. UNC Chapel Hill's students, faculty, and staff got a rare treat when Chilean President Ricardo Lagos Escobar visited campus Friday. His Excellency received an honorary Doctor of Laws in a special ceremony officiated by Chancellor James Miser. President Escobar addressed a packed hall in Moorhead Planetarium. He stressed the importance of international unity against terrorism.
Well, I think that the best way to show solidarity with the U.S. is to work together against terrorism. And this means, in our case, we are providing information whenever the U.S. require.
President Escobar was a visiting Latin American Studies professor here at Carolina in 1973.
Coming up on Carolina Week, we'll take you to the Cherokee Reservation in western North Carolina.
And we'll see you then. Because
when you shop in Orange County, money comes back to you.
Thank you for shopping Orange.
So shop Orange and see what a difference you can make.
Un día en el bosque las ratas jugaban. Escucha Smokey antes de tratar.
Solo tú.
No juegues con fósforos, no juegues con fuego. No hay nada para un pobre conejo asustado o un pobre ratón sin casa en que vivir. Si el hermoso bosque es lo que deseas, no juegues con fósforos, no juegues con fuego.
Solo tú puedes prevenir los fuegos forestales.
¡Fuego!
Triangle residents are fighting hunger by simply eating out. Whether it's coffee, dinner, or dessert, community members may be helping each other by dining at local restaurants. Tuesday marked the 13th annual Restaurant Sharing 5+5% or RSVVP Day. 75 restaurants donated 10% of the day's gross receipts to the Interfaith Council's Community Kitchen. Top of the Hill manager Jason Hartman expects RSVVP will benefit from a large Tuesday night crowd.
We're doing whatever we can to help, obviously, the people in need, and luckily we're in a position financially where we're able to give some back to the people that need.
Last year, the Eat Out Help Out event raised about $22,000 in Chapel Hill and Carrboro. The UNC Chapel Hill football players are doing more than just playing football these days. As a part of the Children's Rights Week, some Carolina football players spent time with elementary school students. The players read children's books to the students in the pit and played a game of football in the quad earlier this week. The players' interaction with the kids was just one of the events scheduled for Children's Rights Week.
November is Native American Heritage Month. Carolina Week's Regina Willis went to the Cherokee Reservation in western North Carolina to see what life is like for Native Americans today.
Many think Indian means teepees, feathers, and war paint. When you drive down the main street through the reservation, those images are reinforced by dozens of Indian-themed hotels, restaurants, and shops.
That's just for show. That's to get people to come to pay money.
Carolina freshman Travis Hips is half Cherokee and grew up on the reservation.
It's really just a whole lot just like a normal town. I mean, people come and want to see the Indians and want to go see where they live, but they really live in just like normal houses.
Tribal spokesman Brandon Stevens agrees.
People become lost with the facade of the craft shops and that sort of thing, and they forget that this is a living community that is not just a tourist stop.
The whole reservation itself is like a big, huge family.
And it's a family that takes care of its kids.
The Cherokee tribe will pay for any of its members to go to college. But Hip says not many are filling the seats.
People always just stay around home. The Cherokee are not, scared of going out in the world and being attacked or stereotyped or anything like that. But that's just the way it's always been.
Many choose to stay to promote their heritage, with attractions like the Cherokee Museum. Stevens believes it's important to pass on tribal history, because not many Cherokee remain.
We're a very small percentage. We're almost like an endangered species.
The drama Unto These Hills tells the Cherokee story, ending with the Trail of Tears, the bitter path to Oklahoma the Cherokee took when white settlers pushed them off their land.
The Cherokee are not trying to make people feel guilty, but they want people to know that they were forced to leave their homes and that a few did stay, and those few have generated what is today Cherokee.
Hip says the Cherokee who remain are stronger because of their trials.
They're normal people in a modern world, but they've had to go through a whole lot, and they're very proud of that.
In Cherokee, I'm Regina Willis, Carolina Week.
After Thanksgiving break, we'll show you how a new casino has affected Cherokee and its people.
Well, the weather certainly has been beautiful lately.
Sure has. Carolina Week's Kelly Mahoney joins us now. Kelly, is the good weather going to last forever?
Well, it certainly has been gorgeous lately, but we're still in a period of drought. So right now, a change from this gorgeous weather might just be a good thing. And we'll talk about whether one's coming or not in just a few minutes. But first, let's go to this week's weather question. And that is, 1 year ago this week, forecasters were predicting record heat, severe storms, snow, or hurricane-force winds. The answer and your weekend forecasts are coming up just after the break.
I need a break.
Yeah, well, what I need is a little peace and quiet when I come home. I've been working hard all day.
You have got to do something about that son of yours. I can't stand it anymore.
Well, maybe if you were a better mother, he wouldn't be such a problem.
Better mother? When do you ever spend time with him?
Family Counseling Service of Durham. We can help. Call 286-3757.
His father left home today.
I'll be there.
Forever.
Wait and see.
He'll be twice as likely to drop out of high school. 30% more likely to attempt suicide.
'Cause I love you.
Even if you don't live with your kids, your emotional and financial support gives them a better chance.
I'll be the best friend you ever had.
Hi, and welcome back to Carolina Week. Well, continuing beautiful weather made the outdoors a perfect spot for the a cappella group Psalm 100 to practice for their concerts, which are coming up this Friday and Saturday night. While they were outside enjoying the extremely mild conditions that we've been having, let's start off by taking a look at a couple extremes and November records that have been set for our area in the past. The record high was set back in 1950 at 88 degrees. The lowest temperature we've ever seen in November was actually back in 1970 at 11 degrees. The most rain we've ever had in one day was just over 4.5 inches back in 1963, and the most snow we've ever seen during this month was just over 2.5 inches back in 1975. And it's worth noting that just 1 year ago we actually had just below that at 2.2 inches. And what a change that is from the weather we're seeing this month. If we take a look at the satellite map, we see a familiar sight. North Carolina is sitting under a huge clear slot. There is some interesting things happening out to the west, though. You can see some clouds are really building in that may be affecting our weather in days to come. Most likely not, though. Let's take a look at the forecast map, and you can see that the most interesting things are building out to the west. There's a low pressure system bringing a lot of rain to the panhandle of Texas and also out into the Pacific Northwest. Washington, Oregon are receiving a tremendous amount of rain, which they need a lot, as do we. But the bad news here is we are still going to be dominated by a very strong high pressure system, at least for the next couple of days. So the 4 4-day forecast is a familiar looking one. On Friday, we'll start the weekend off with a high of 74 degrees, which is over 10 degrees above normal for this time of the year. Saturday and Sunday, we're looking at mostly sunny skies. Highs will be just around 70 degrees and lows sitting at around 44. On Monday, we'll start the week off with a high of 69 degrees, and we're going to start a little bit of a cooling trend with a low of just 42 degrees. If your weekend plans include a trip to the beach, Saturday and Sunday look great down there as well, a bit more mild. High of 70 on Saturday, 73 on Sunday, and lows in the upper 40s. Out in the mountains, this is very surprising. It's a little bit cooler, but they are nearly 15 degrees above normal out near Asheville at this time of the year. 63 on Saturday, 62 as a high on Sunday. And if you're going to be sticking around in Chapel Hill this weekend, try and catch the game against Duke. Kickoff is at 1:30 in the afternoon. The forecast is sunny skies with a high of, or a temperature of 68 degrees, which once again makes perfect football weather. And if we want to get back to the weather question, 1 year ago the weather was actually quite different. Do you know what forecasters were predicting?
Maybe they were predicting record temperatures.
No, actually it was snow. So while the weather we're having now is making great football weather, it's definitely different from last year and different from normal. So.
All right, thanks a lot, Kelly. Ben, that was some comeback on Saturday.
Unfortunately, it was against the Hills.
It was a tough day on Saturday for the football team. But first, as we go to break, the men's basketball team had its final tune-up for the regular season on Saturday against Nike Elite. Once again, senior Chris Lang leads the way, scoring 27 points. Junior forward Will Johnson helps out by racking up 15 rebounds. In the end, Carolina runs away with the 81-70 victory. Carolina Week will come crashing back after this.
There is a better way to have fun with history. Visit americaslibrary.gov. Log on, play around, learn something.
This is George Strait for RAD, recording artists, actors, and athletes against drunk driving. When you're traveling during the holidays and see someone who's had too much to drink, about to get behind the wheel, get those keys and save a life. When you celebrate, designate. Choose a designated driver. You drink and drive, you lose.
Welcome back to Carolina Week Sports. The Carolina women's soccer team is looking for its 17th national title, and it all begins this weekend at Fetzer Field. The #1 seeded Heels will play UNC Greensboro this Friday in the first round of the NCAA championship. If successful, Carolina will play again on Sunday at Fetzer Field in the second round against either Duke or Tennessee. Carolina has already wrapped up one title this season by defeating Florida State in the title match of the ACC tournament to win its 16th consecutive conference championship. #1 Carolina was in control the entire way, led by tourney MVP Alyssa Ramsey, who totaled 3 goals and 2 assists for the weekend. The Heels finished the 4-0 victory with this nice give and go to Ann Morrell, putting the ball in the back of the net. In other action, the field hockey team lost in the first round of the NCAA championship to Michigan 5-2. They finished the season at 14-7. And women's cross-country runner Shalane Flanagan adds to her trophy case, winning her second consecutive NCAA Southeast Regional Championship. Flanagan and the Heels men's and women's cross-country teams now head back to Furman for the Division I championship. All the football team had to do was win its final 3 games, all at home, to have a legitimate shot at the Peach Bowl. Sounds easy enough, right? Well, the Heels get off to a good start against Wake Forest on Saturday when Darian Durant hooks up with Bosley Allen for the touchdown. Durant throws for 361 yards and 4 touchdowns against the Deacon, including this quick pass and run to Sam Akins, who goes all the way down the sideline, 75 yards for the touchdown to put the Heels up 21-0. Carolina would increase its lead to 31-14 before the Deacons storm back, and with a minute 17 remaining, Wake QB James McPherson crosses the goal line for the game-winning touchdown. It gives them a 32-31 lead, and it's a victory the Tar Heels found hard to believe.
I mean, it's real shocking. I still don't think the game is over. I still think we got to play some more, you know, but, I mean, it's over, but I don't want it to end like that.
Despite the loss, Carolina is still in the thick of the bowl hunt thanks to Virginia beating Georgia Tech and NC State upsetting FSU this past Saturday. The Heels must now do their part and rebound from 2 consecutive losses by winning their last 2 games to finish bowl eligible at 7-5.
Especially considering that we're trying to definitely go to a bowl game this year. So we have to learn from that Wake Forest game and also that Georgia Tech game and do something about it.
Duke and SMU are teams that we can beat. They're teams that we should beat, and we're just going to take the mentality that if we want to go to a bowl, any bowl, then we're going to have to win these last 2 ball games.
Carolina men's soccer is waiting for postseason play, and the guys finished up their regular season by hosting South Carolina in a battle for the border. The seniors were enjoying their final regular season game at Fetzer Field, and the Tar Heels would grab an early 1-0 lead and then let the defense dominate. The 20th-ranked Gamecocks would try to go offensive in the second half, but would be shut out. Heels win 1-0. The victory vaults Carolina into the number 2 seed in the ACC tournament at Clemson. Next up, they'll face NC State on Thursday. The women's basketball team is advancing in the 2001 preseason NIT tournament. The ladies begin with a win against George Mason on Friday, and on Sunday they hosted a second-round matchup against the Purple Aces of Evansville. This game would mark the return of senior guard Nikki Teasley after a year away from the program. Teasley would provide a spark off the bench, dishing out 8 assists to become the Heels' all-time leader with 547. Carolina is led on offense by guards Coretta Brown and Leah Metcalf, who helped the Heels to the 89-69 victory. And then back to football, Darian Durant wins his 5th ACC Rookie of the Week award for the season, and Julius Peppers was named a finalist for the National Defensive Player of the Year award.
Thanks, Ben.
Following the break, we'll see what Carolina students enjoy most about the Thanksgiving holiday.
Carolina Week returns after the break.
The steps of Wilson Library receive no sunshine on early winter mornings, so it's chilly there if you don't have that double-shot caramel espresso. Surrounded by forever green magnolias, the steps are a fine place to study, or at least pretend to, while you watch a border collie chase a frisbee in the quad. No one knows the real Carolina like a student. Carolina Week, the student news show.
If you have a story idea, contact Carolina Week at 843-8292. You can also visit us online at carolinaweek.org. If you have questions about this program, write Carolina Week at Campus Box 3365, UNCCH, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, 27599.
Finally, in this week's Speak Out segment, we asked UNC students, what does Thanksgiving mean to you?
I'm excited to see my family and go do some stuff in the snow, which isn't what happens here very often. So it means just being with the family that I'm not usually with during the year.
I think Thanksgiving is a symbol for everybody because you're growing up. It's always a time when maybe the whole family gets to get together because you might not see each other during the year. So you just get together and you get to have a lot of good food. So that's always good when you're here in Carolina and you got to eat in Lenoir every day.
First thing it means is that I can be with my family and my friends and appreciate being alive and that they're there with me. Another thing is I get to eat macaroni and cheese. I'm so excited.
Our sample isn't scientific and shouldn't be taken as a reflection of widespread opinion on campus.
Well, you headed home for the break?
I am. I'm going to head back to Chicago, and I am going to fly.
Brave soul. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Carolina Week.
Thank you for joining us, and be sure to watch next week.
Until then, have a good night and a good week.